All right. Welcome, everybody. Again, this is the CFAC meeting, our summer CFAC meeting. We want to welcome you. I'm going to hand it over to Marlon to give the welcome um, updates.
Great. Tracy, just wanted to confirm that you can hear me.
Yep, I can hear you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marlon Flournoy, and I'm the Deputy Director of Planning and Modal Programs here at Caltrans. I'm the California Freight Advisory Committee Chair, and I'm pleased to be with you all today. I want to extend a warm welcome to all of our attendees and our participants. As a reminder, the California Freight Advisory Committee plays an essential role in shaping California freight and the development of the freight transportation initiatives. Before I pass it off to Tracy for housekeeping items, I'm happy to announce that Ben D'Alba is our new Division Chief for the Division of Transportation Planning. And before turning over to Ben for just a couple of remarks, I do want to take a moment to express my sincere appreciation to Nieves Castro for her outstanding leadership as Acting Division Chief of Transportation Planning over the past 7 months. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Ben.
Well, thanks, Marlon, and hello, everybody. I can't see you, but I know you're there. Just wanted to say that I'm really excited about taking on this opportunity as to lead the Division of Transportation Planning. As some of you may know, and some of you may not, but I was part of the very beginning planning of the Freight Advisory Committee. So this is a very nice welcome return to this planning and very important entity. I was trying to remember where the meeting was, the original meeting, but I know it was in Sacramento sometime. But if any of you remember where that was, I'd be curious to test your memory on that. But really, really happy, really excited to work with all of you going forward and get going on the next update of the Freight Mobility Plan. So, thanks, Marlon. I know I'm supposed to pass it to somebody. Tracy, back to you.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much, Ben. Good afternoon. And I'm Tracy Frost, and I work in the Office of Strategic Freight Planning. And there are just a few housekeeping items today. Please note that today's meeting is being recorded. The recording, along with all of the presenter PowerPoint presentations and relevant materials, will be accessible on our CFAC webpage 2 weeks from this date, so around July 15th. So to ensure our meeting is productive and interactive, we ask CFAC members and presenters to comment in the chat or to use the raised hand feature to indicate they want to speak. Members of the public may also use the hand feature to express their desire to comment and may also submit comments in the chat. Although the moderator is able to mute participants, we kindly ask you to manage your microphone settings to avoid unintentional disruptions. I will help call on the order of hands raised and questions in the chat. So today's agenda features 2 main presentations, as well as an important agency roundtable announcements from California State Transportation Agency, the California Transportation Commission, Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, Caltrans Division of Transportation Planning, CFAC member roundtable announcements, along with other partner organizations. And with that, back to Marlon to introduce our first speakers.
Great, Tracy, thank you so much. So first on our agenda, we have the California Freight Mobility Plan, CFMP 2027 update. This topic will be presented by Kaylin Pacheco, our Office Chief of Strategic Freight Planning, Kieran Parmar, our California Freight Mobility Plan Manager, who's acting in that role, and Ryan Matau, who is our Community Engagement Consultant with MIG. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Kaylin.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, I just lost my connection. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Excellent. All right. Well, again, good afternoon. Happy to be here today to give an update on the California Freight Mobility Plan 2027. We would ask that you hold your questions until the end of the presentation, but I would encourage you to use your raise hand feature or put your questions into the chat, and then questions will be asked in the order that they do show up in Teams. And then Tracy will call on folks with their hands raised in the order that the questions do come in. Next slide. Okay, I do want to spend just a bit of time doing a recap from our February CFAC meeting. We did cover a lot of material, and I just wanted to highlight some of the CFMP background information and requirements. So in 2015, when the FAST Act was passed, the National Highway Freight Network and the National Highway Freight Program were established, which required all states to create a state freight plan every 5 years, which included 10 elements, and it also included a fiscally constrained freight investment plan. And then in 2017, when Senate Bill 1, which is the Road Repair and Accountability Act, was passed, the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program was established, and TSEP Cycle 1 was adopted by the Commission in May 2018. And then the CFMP 2018 addendum was approved at the federal level, and then CFMP 2020 was approved at the state level. And then in 2021, under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, also known as IIJA, this new act required all states to create a freight plan every 4 years with 7 additional new elements in addition to the 10 that were required in previous years. And then CFMP was adopted in September 2023, and now we are kicking off CFMP 2027. And then for the content and structure changes that we discussed back in February, we talked about updating and refining our goals and objectives to better align with our strategies. We talked about the modal plans and highlighting an overview of for each of the freight modes and the respective needs assessments. And we also talked about the desire to tie our strategies and actions to the freight implementation plan. And then those actions would help identify responsible agencies and industries to help with the implementation portion. And then that in turn will help us identify projects that align with the strategies and actions that tie directly to TSEP. And for outreach efforts and major milestones, we just right before we had our February meeting, our communication plan was approved. And so since that time, several months in now, Caltrans initiated the development of a survey instrument for the public and freight industry surveys, and you'll hear more about those today. In addition, we've worked with our public affairs office to draft and send out social media posts and an email blast to get the word out for our outreach and engagement. And finally, just for the review process timeline, we are anticipating to have a full draft completed by December 2026, and that review would happen through June 2027, and then FHWA submission for review by late June of 2027, and anticipated approval in September of 2027. Next slide, please. So as we're developing our new plan, we did We have kicked off the initial modal profiles and the needs assessment sections for the plan. So we're currently doing some internal review of those profiles and anticipate sharing the profiles with CFAC members in September or October ahead of our November meeting. And we plan to review and analyze the survey results from our public and industry surveys and incorporate that information into these sections as well. Our outreach efforts, again, we currently have our public and freight industry survey instruments. The questions were drafted in-house, but in coordination with MIG, who is the consulting firm assisting us with our survey instrument. The survey did go live at the beginning of June, and the surveys will remain open using Maptionaire through July 15th. MIG's consulting contract does end on July 31st, and they'll spend 2 weeks analyzing the results. Beginning August 1st, Caltrans will utilize the public engagement portal to continue outreach and engagement, and we will give additional instructions once that's all set up and we're ready to give that information out. But today we'll talk about refining our refined vision statements, goals, objectives, and the current status for implementation of strategies from our previous state freight plans. And in a bit, we'll talk a bit about our CFMP 2023 strategies and actions and what will be included in CFMP 2027. And finally, we'll discuss upcoming CFAC involvement and assistance through a possible CFAC subcommittee or two to implement a few of our current strategies. And with that, I'll pass it over to Kieran to cover the freight modal profiles.
Thanks, Kaylin. So yeah, as Kaylin mentioned, since the last CFAC meeting, there has been a lot of work being done to restructure and reorganize the CFMP. So one of the main changes that you will see in this update will be the freight modal sections. And these will be providing an overview of each freight mode and highlighting current challenges, issues, and suggesting future needs. So the benefit to having these sections for each freight mode will be to provide an easier, more comprehensive structure to the plan and help readers sort of navigate through the plan by a specific mode rather than by themes. So the CFMP freight modal sections include highways, railways, ports, including airports, seaports, land ports of entry, and then a modal section on pipelines. Each modal section will provide an overview, highlighting its respective freight network and or facilities, conditions and performance, freight flows and demand, safety and environmental impacts, and then any technology, data, and workforce needs. So yeah, in the last few months, we have been working really hard to develop these drafts for review. And although we currently have a solid foundation on these drafts so far, we will be continuing to gather and analyze feedback from our surveys and our outreach efforts so that we can include that feedback into the needs assessments of the modal sections. All right, so in addition to the modal sections, we've been working on executing our public engagement plan, which includes some of the methods listed on this slide. As Kaylin mentioned, in the beginning of May, we came across an opportunity to be able to utilize consultant support through DOTP's Planning Public Engagement Contract, also known as PPEC. So Ryan from MIG has helped us a lot to develop and administer the industry and public surveys, which were shared with you all last week. These surveys are from a web-based platform called Maptionnaire. And Maptionnaire allows users to pinpoint areas on a map and answer any corresponding questions from the survey. And yeah, again, as Kaylin mentioned, although we are really lucky to have MIG's support, due to this unexpected opportunity, we only have a short time frame until the contract expires at the end of July, and then we will be transitioning over to the Caltrans engagement portal. But that being said, we are doing our very best currently to share the surveys as much as possible. We're utilizing our networks. We are utilizing Caltrans's headquarters and district social media platforms. This includes LinkedIn. So if you see them, please repost if you can or feel comfortable. A lot of you have already been doing that, so thank you. We are utilizing emails and newsletter blasts and also trying to present at various community meetings throughout the state, mainly virtual meetings. We are hoping to plan at least 2 industry and or public workshops, but due to limited resources, details for this effort are still to be determined. So on the slide, you will see a snapshot of the industry survey intro page, and at the bottom, a QR code. So feel free to use your smartphones to scan this QR code and access the survey if you haven't already. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Ryan from MIG. He's here to share some high-level themes from the feedback that we have received so far, and he can answer any questions on the survey that you might have.
Thanks, Karen. Just going into our first slide here, I'm going to walk through each of the surveys just at the very highest level here. What we want to talk about is a little bit about what each survey is covering, a little bit about our current counts of respondents, and just the kind of first glance at who those respondents are. And we have a few different slides to kind of detail that, but wanted to really emphasize that the industry survey, for obvious reasons, is more targeted. We have kind of both a very targeted and a very broad survey instrument in play right now, and so we're going to start with the more targeted one. We are still looking for that diversity of perspectives across the freight system, and we're really trying to get out as widely as possible into the technically, aware, proficient audience that this group represents and has connections to. So right now, what we are looking at across the 3 or so major categories of topics that this survey covers, which are listed there on the slide, we've reached about 110 folks with this survey where they have come in and at least looked around. 18 of those made it to the end of the survey and clicked submit. I will say, from having dug in a little bit deeper into the data, that there's another dozen or so in those unsubmitted responses that still have some questions answered, and the platform will save all of your responses kind of regardless of how far you get. You can drop it, pick it back up. It'll keep your responses and continue to count you as that one respondent. So I want to just like to emphasize those things. Right now, this feels like a low-ish number. We're not looking for thousands and thousands of responses to this survey necessarily, but I do want to, and if we could jump to the next slide, I want to just kind of highlight that in that set of responses, one of the first questions is what area of the freight system that you might be working in, or our target audiences overall. And so this is a multiple choice. You can select more than one if they apply to you kind of question. But it does give a little bit of a perspective of what we're seeing in these results so far. And that largest bar there, because this is not intended to be an eye test, is trucking, followed by logistics, warehouse, and distribution, and then into government agencies and railroads. Very few responses in some of the other categories, and we've yet to have anybody check off manufacturing or land use development. We specifically chose this list because it matches up with the audiences that we are specifically trying to reach. So if you see a gap in this, we're going to be talking a little bit more about what you can do to help us fill in those responses as we go forward too. So this is what we've seen so far in the industry survey. We're going to wait until we have a larger response set to really tell you about what we're hearing specifically. But we're, as Kieran and Kaylin had said earlier, we're going to spend the last couple of weeks of this month really digging into this data and pushing forward results to you all. Moving on to the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit in similar mode about the public survey. This set of questions is obviously focused in a little bit different direction. It's a little less about the specific or technical solutions that people might prefer, and a little bit more about how freight has been experienced in the community, and particularly the activity and impacts and where those activities and impacts are across the community. We also have a section in there that touches on the importance overall of the major Caltrans goals to get a sense of folks' priorities on that front. And now this survey, we have been really broadcasting. So far, a little over 1,300 visitors have at least clicked in and looked around in the survey, and 386 of those have submitted their responses. In this case, there is actually a pretty substantial number of responses in that unsubmitted orange bar that you see that are included, or that would be included in our analysis. They just didn't get to the very end and hit submit. So that's a little bit of an overview of where we're at with response. But one of the powerful points of this platform that we're using, that we've touched on a couple of times here on the next slide, is summarized as the individual points that people place to identify where their community is. And so this is a really relatively simple theming question that adds a lot of power to the other answers that we receive, because we can see if there are concentrations of particular concerns or priorities in different areas across the state. And as you can see here, we've got they're relatively obscured circles because the heat map is placed over them, but each of those circles represents one response. There's about 400 responses shown on this map, and because a lot of them tend to pile up, for example, down in the LA area, we also added a heat map layer to just show where those concentrations are falling. But we're really excited to be able to say that we are seeing results kind of up and down the state in both urban and rural areas, which was one of the intentions of the communications plan. And as we dig into these responses, we're going to want to be able to really look at that where aspect. And the other question that really touches on that is asking about where people are experiencing impacts or problems as a result of the freight industry. And some of those are going to be obviously related because they're in their community, but we're really excited to see that larger data set. And so with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Kieran to talk a little bit about what we can do to bump these numbers up even further.
Well, thanks so much, Ryan. As Ryan shared, our industry survey, isn't receiving as much traction as we had hoped for. And in order to get a wide range of perspectives and feedback to inform the plan, we are really asking for your commitment and your support for the following: to take the survey yourselves and provide responses for all the questions before submitting, sharing both the industry and the public survey with your networks to help us expand our reach, and let us know of any potential outreach and engagement opportunities that we can attend or present at, to help us get the word out. And I will leave this slide up for a few seconds in case anyone wants to scan the QR code again here. We will also be sending out the links again to both of the surveys with the rest of the materials from this presentation. All right, so through reviewing some of the feedback from the CFMP 2023, it was apparent that the vision statement was something we could reassess and revise for this next plan update. On the right is a quick look at the CFMP vision statements throughout the years, 2014, 2020, and 2023. And as you can see, there have been slight changes with each update. So after some research, we identified some of the main criteria to develop an effective vision statement. So this includes being future focused so that we make sure that we're always planning ahead and anticipating future goals and needs, using clear and concise language, which everyone can understand and act on, and then providing inspiration to all who are reading it or participating. Being purpose-driven, so to act with intention and defining a clear sense of why the plan is necessary and worth implementing. And then, of course, making sure that it aligns with our overall state goals and plans. So this is the current CFMP vision statement shown on the slide. It is missing a few of these key criteria. So currently it reads, as the largest national gateway for international trade and domestic commerce, California strives to have the world's most innovative, economically competitive, multimodal freight system that is efficient, reliable, modern, integrated, resilient, safe, and sustainable, where the benefits of freight are realized by all while supporting healthy communities and a thriving environment. So this vision statement begins with a statistic for the state's freight system, which is unnecessary to include in a vision statement, and it's already addressed in the executive summary and the plan itself. So we can cut that out. The statement is also very wordy and uses excessive and redundant adjectives. But it does, however, capture verbs that are future focused and aspirational. For example, California strives to. The vision statement identifies purposes including supporting healthy communities and a thriving environment. But these are specific to only 2 goals of the CFMP. So to revise this vision statement, we included the criteria I mentioned above. And we came up with this draft vision statement to share with you all today. So California envisions a safe, resilient, and integrated freight, multimodal freight system, one that boosts the economy, supports public health and the environment, and protects the state's people and assets to ensure the benefits of freight are shared by all. This draft vision statement, it aligns with CTP 2050, CAPTI 2.0, Caltrans strategic plan, and the California State Rail Plan. And then now I'll pass it over to Kaylin again to go over some of the proposed changes for the goals.
Right, so currently there are 7 goals identified in CFMP 2023, each one accompanied by a lengthy description, as you can see on the screen. And having too many goals can spread attention and resources thin, causing difficulty in prioritizing efforts, and it can cause the goals to overlap or become repetitive. It also makes it harder to track progress and demonstrate success. Similar to a vision statement, goals must use clear, concise, and future-focused language. We're recommending the CFMP 2027 update to include 5 goals. The first is multimodal mobility and connectivity, so combining the top goal on the screen and the bottom, and this goal is a result of combining both of those goals. And if you read these goal descriptions, they're redundant and overlap. with one another. So in an effort to prioritize the multimodal integration and improve connectivity, we're suggesting that this goal be changed to multimodal mobility and connectivity. The next is economic prosperity, and we are not proposing any changes to this goal. The next is public health and environmental stewardship. Supporting healthy communities in regard to freight activity heavily relies on environmental impacts, which can have adverse effects on one's health. For this reason, we are proposing to combine the environmental stewardship and healthy communities goals into one goal. And then for safety and resiliency, this one we are proposing to remain the same. And then for asset management, we would also keep this goal the same. And Karen, I'll pass it back over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Kaylin. So yeah, as Kaylin mentioned, we want our goals to be clear and concise. They must also help provide a framework for translating the vision into actionable directions. A goal should state a desired outcome and be broad enough to inspire multiple objectives. So to help us revise the CFMP goal descriptions, we identified key components on how to define a goal. So this includes an action verb, which conveys our action or our intent. So these could be words like enhance or promote or support. We also want to include our desired outcome. So this is what we want to achieve with this goal. So an example could be like reducing emissions or protecting our communities. And the last but not least, the why, which is the broader objective. So just connecting it back to our statewide values and our overarching goals. So this could be like equity or climate or economic vitality. Okay, so these are the current descriptions for the multimodal mobility and the connectivity and accessibility goals. As you can see, they don't quite align with our template, but using this methodology, the new goal description for multimodal mobility and connectivity would read, to integrate all modes of freight transportation to enhance efficiency, sustainability, and reliability of goods movement. So the components of the methodology are color-coded to show how each of these words or phrases matches the methodology. So again, this is the current economic prosperity goal description. And using this methodology, the new description reads, to enhance California's economic vitality through strategic and freight investments, increase productivity and workforce development. And after applying this methodology to each of our 5 proposed goals, we developed these corresponding goal descriptions. So I know there's a ton of writing on the screen, but don't feel pressured to read through it all right now. We will be sending all of this out to CFAC members after today's meeting for you all to review and provide feedback. So similar to the goals, after reviewing the objectives for each goal, in the CFMB 2023, we came across a lot of redundancies and vague language that made it really hard for us to focus on the purpose of the plan. So some of the key takeaways were objectives should identify the desired outcomes of a specific goal and describe the what and the how for achieving that specific goal. Objectives should be specific, so they need to describe exactly what's being done. They should be actionable, providing steps that can be taken to reach each goal, and they should be measurable so we can track progress and or success. And sometimes objectives can include a time frame if it's applicable. This will heavily depend on available resources and authority. So overall, objectives are short-term actions taken to reach the goal. So the current multimodal mobility goal objectives are listed on the slide. And if you read through it, as you'll be able to tell that some of these objectives are vague and broad in the language that they're using. Some are redundant and they're overlapping with one another. And some are, multiple are just focused on one mode instead of incorporating all modes. So in order to make these objectives more specific and achievable, we revised and developed examples specific to the updated goals. And I just want to mention that what you see on the screen on the slide, these are just examples for now of the objectives that we could potentially include. But in order to make the CFMP effective, we will really need to gather and analyze the feedback from our surveys and our outreach efforts to identify the key areas that these objectives should be focused on. But for now, for these examples, the new goal, multimodal mobility and connectivity, proposes the following revised objectives. So instead of saying we want to identify causes and solutions to freight bottlenecks, we really want to identify and prioritize investments that eliminate freight bottlenecks to improve multimodal connectivity at key intermodal freight areas. So one strategy for this could be targeting freight corridors, connecting intermodal hubs for capacity, intelligent transportation systems, or operational enhancements. So the other two examples include the use of even more specific components, such as measurement and time frame. Due to resource constraints, it would be really difficult and somewhat ineffective for us to include specific measurements and timelines for every single objective if we cannot confidently commit to them. However, we will include them if applicable. So for these examples, one would be increasing freight rail transportation of port-related container movements by X% by a certain year. One strategy could be investments in targeting infrastructure improvements and inland port development. And then another objective could be reducing truck dwell time at intermodal terminals by X% by a certain year. A strategy for this could be investments in modal transfer infrastructure and intelligent transportation systems.
Okay, I'll jump into the strategies list that we currently have for CFMP 2023. And I do want to say that since the 2014 plan, many strategies have been added that might be outdated, unrealistic, or unclear at this point. So we just want to look at what's already in process, what may have been completed, and that extensive list just really makes it harder to track progress and achieve those goals. So we have spent quite a bit of time just going through our list. Kieran, if you can click on the slide. So questions to consider as we're looking at our strategies moving forward. Can you click one more time? Is the how. Does the current strategy explain how the actions and methods will be used to achieve objectives? Does it guide investment and or operational activities? Has the strategy already been implemented since the last update or updates? Is the strategy in the process of being implemented? And is the strategy practical, or realistic, and focused on implementation. So for CFMP 2023, there are a total of 62 strategies. And over the past several years, Caltrans and partner agencies have conducted numerous studies and projects for many of the strategies included in the plan. So if Caltrans has led or is leading a strategy and work is underway or completed for a specific strategy, we are proposing that we remove it from the strategy list and add it into the implementation section of CFMP 2027. If Caltrans has worked collaboratively with partner agencies to take action on a particular strategy, it will be identified and included in the implementation section of the CFMP. If Caltrans isn't the lead agency for a strategy or a set of strategies, but it's was identified in the California Sustainable Freight Action Plan, that has been noted, but we propose removing it from the list and adding it into the implementation section of the plan if that work has already been completed. If work has not been started on a strategy, Caltrans is evaluating the remaining list of strategies. There are 29 of those, and the recommendation would be to either do the work in-house in coordination with partner agencies or seeking input from our CFAC members through potential subcommittees. Next slide. So for the next steps and what we'd like to accomplish is, first off, circling back to the surveys. Please take the survey, share the survey if there is an opportunity at a workshop to get the information out. We would love to be a part of that. If you're getting an email blast or a social media post, please share that out as well. And we would like for our CFAC members to review and provide feedback on the proposed changes to the CFMP vision statement, the goals and the objectives that we've shared today. If work has not been started, Caltrans, again, will evaluate the handful of strategies that our CFAC members may be able to assist us with. We are asking for our committee members to weigh in on each of the strategies and propose lead agencies or industries for each of those strategies. If we have proposed a CFAC subcommittee we've made a note of that. We're asking our CFAC members to review and comment this month, if possible. We are, again, potentially considering a CFAC subcommittee or two, which would be comprised of 4 to 6 members, CFAC members, and 1 to 2 Caltrans staff, and a scribe to take notes. The subcommittee groups, I'm hearing some background noise. Not sure if that can be muted or not. Subcommittee groups would meet virtually one time before the November 12th CFAC meeting, and then periodic email correspondence to develop an outline or a framework to conduct research or a pilot study for a given strategy. And then subcommittee members would then report out, give a progress report at our November CFAC meeting, and then again at our February or March CFAC meeting. We don't have a date yet for our February-March meeting, but we will start looking at that as we get further along in the calendar year. So the framework will then be reviewed by all of CFAC committee, and recommendations would be incorporated into CFMP 2027. Now, there is a possibility that with that framework that would spill over, it would still be included as a strategy, possibly not implemented into the plan if the work cannot be done before December 2026. But we would like to start making progress on some of the remaining strategies. And next slide, please. So this concludes our presentation, and we'd like to open it up for questions. Just a reminder, we will be sending out the slides to our CFAC members and would encourage any comments or suggestions on the materials presented today. Again, we'd like to receive comments by the end of July. August 4th it would give folks 5 weeks, knowing that the materials, it'll take a little while to get the materials out, so we can extend it out to August 4th. And then we will send out a reminder in mid-July, just in the event that with the holiday coming up, maybe taking some time off, we just can send that reminder out so that folks can give comments and feedback to us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kaylin, Karen, and Ryan. Looks like there was really a lot of great feedback in the chat. Looks like a lot of the responses have been provided. There is a question: how was the survey for the community results disseminated?
I can, or unless Ryan wants to take that, I can answer that as well. But oh, Ryan, you're still here, so if you want to answer that question, go ahead.
Maybe I do. The main distribution channels were through Caltrans district and then reposted through the headquarters social media feeds, and an email blast to all of the identified interested parties. We've been following that up with some kind of more targeted outreach to organizations with their own networks, whether those be, trucking associations, freight related businesses, and also the government entities, such as, I think it was mentioned a little further up the chat, such as the AB 617 air districts. And we've also done some extensive looking for organizations that might be interested for a variety of reasons, whether they're community-based environmental justice or just community interested organizations. So we've been trying in as many ways as we can. That has been largely a digital effort because of staffing resources to get out to events and things like that. And also because the medium to kind of respond is also digital, so that simplifies things. But yeah, I think that covers the whole list. Karen, if you have any other additions, welcome to hear them.
We are also trying to attend any community meetings or committee meetings that are throughout the state. So like I mentioned, right now, we're mainly focused on virtual meetings since we have limited resources to travel, but we are making an effort to share this survey out with those groups as well. And as I mentioned in the presentation, if you have any suggestions or things that we may have missed, please let us know.
Yeah, another question just popped in. What about outreach via industry trade press and websites that industry gets information from?
Now, on the industry side, we put a fair bit of effort into the LinkedIn side of the social marketing piece, and then also along those that kind of more targeted effort that I was speaking of, we were including both the community and the industry survey links for things like Facebook groups for commodity haulers and organizational links such as the unions and professional associations that we've identified as being part of the active kind of audience and stakeholder list that was identified in the communications plan.
Kaylin, Kieran, or Ryan, unfortunately I'm not able to see any hands raised. Are you seeing any on your side? No?
No.
Okay. I don't see any additional questions in the chat. Are there any additional comments or questions anybody would like to talk about? That's okay. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you so much, team. Great to see that we're building off of what we've done before with the CFMP and making it stronger and better. So I appreciate that. Okay, so next on our agenda, we have the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program Cycle 4 and 5. And so here to present that is Beverly Newman-Burkhart, who is the Associate Deputy Director at the California Transportation Commission. So Beverly, I'll turn it over to you.
Here we go. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Are you actually able to share my slides? I'm so sorry. My computer just closed PowerPoint and I can't reopen it.
Yeah, we can see what we can do. Give us a moment.
If not, I'll see if it starts working again. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, Beverly, just a second here.
Oh, wait, it works now. Oh, okay, and it also works on your screen. I just got it to work too. Okay, well, I can just, okay, yeah, I will share my screen. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry. Okay. There we go. All right. So last week, the California Transportation Commission adopted the 2024 Trade Corridor Enhancement Program. And so I'm going to give a just brief overview of the adopted projects, but I will start with giving just a quick overview of the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program. So the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program was created by Senate Bill 1, and its purpose is to fund freight infrastructure improvements on corridors that have a high volume of freight movement. So this can include trade corridors of national and regional significance, California's portion of the National Highway Freight Network, and corridors identified in the Commission's Senate Bill 671 Clean Freight Corridors Efficiency Assessment. So those aren't the only corridors. Other corridors can be identified by the Commission. And the program has approximately $400 million in funding per year, and that includes state funds from the diesel excise tax revenues, as well as federal funds from the National Highway Freight Program. So the 2024 Trade Corridor Enhancement Program is the program's fourth cycle. And as I mentioned, the Commission adopted the program of projects last week. So the 2024 program includes $995.5 million in funding in total. So $185 million of that total was advanced program to 2 projects previously, so last year. So the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program, otherwise known as TCEP, allows agencies to request advanced programming if they have committed federal funds or committed federal discretionary funds. So 2 projects were successful in doing that. And then last week, the Commission programmed 24 additional projects with $810.5 million. And that altogether, the 26 projects have total project costs or a total value of $3.1 billion. Excuse me. Okay, so in terms of improvement types, I'm going to go over these a little bit more on the next slide, just kind of some of the benefits, but we funded a wide variety of project types. So we funded some medium and heavy duty zero emission vehicle charging infrastructure along some of the priority freight corridors that were identified in the Senate Bill 671 Clean Freight Corridors Efficiency Assessment, truck corridor improvements, rail capacity improvements, highway interchange improvements, port improvements, rail safety and grade separation improvements, improvements to surface transportation, local roads and connector roads, and then we also funded a bridge replacement. Okay, so in terms of benefits, so in terms of freight benefits, the projects that we funded eliminate key freight bottlenecks such as at-grade rail and road crossings, outdated intersection designs, and really increase freight throughput, improve freight speeds, cut delays, and provide congestion relief and reduce truck idling. We also funded projects that increase rail capacity, shifting more freight onto trains and off of our congested highways. And then additionally, we funded enhancements to on-dock rail, allowing containers to move off of ships more quickly and onto trains. So we funded projects all over the state, and many of those projects were at or near some of the California's most critical marine ports. So we funded projects at or near the ports of Long Beach, Los Angeles, Hueneme, Richmond, Redwood City, and Oakland. And then additionally, we funded projects that enhance access to intermodal rail yards, inland ports, warehouses, and other key freight locations. Last cycle, in cycle 3 or the 2022 program, we began funding ZEV or medium and heavy duty zero emission vehicle infrastructure projects, and we continue to do so this cycle. So the funding included over $94 million for 8 medium and heavy duty zero emission vehicle infrastructure projects. These projects will include 16 charging locations along California's most critical freight corridors that were identified in the SB 671 Clean Freight Corridor Assessment. And according to the California Energy Commission's medium and heavy duty ZEV dashboard, there are currently about 2,044 publicly accessible medium and heavy duty ZEV charging ports available in California, and our 8 recommended projects will add 509 charging ports to that total, which would be a 25% increase to the statewide total. And the charging ports that the charging stations that we're funding, boost charging availability all over the state. So we have projects that are near the California-Mexico border, near marine ports, and along some key freight corridors in Northern California that are currently critically underserved by zero emission infrastructure for medium and heavy duty vehicles. And the projects provide a wide variety of complementary benefits in addition to the freight benefits. So benefits that really enhance safety and livability in communities across the state. So collectively, the projects will reduce greenhouse gas emissions and improve air quality by reducing idling for trucks, cars, and trains. The projects also have habitat restoration elements, climate resiliency upgrades, charging infrastructure for zero emission passenger vehicles, and mitigation for vehicle miles traveled through expanded transit services. Projects also reduce conflict points by eliminating at-grade crossings, adding protected intersections, constructing roundabouts, and updating outdated interchanges. There also are projects that have improvements for transportation industry workers, so more maintenance vehicle pullouts, enhanced lighting, and intelligent transportation system upgrades to protect our highway workers, as well as rail signal upgrades and maintenance access points and control system upgrades to protect railway workers. And then notably, several of the funded projects also divert freight traffic out of neighborhoods and onto designated trade corridors, improving air quality and safety for historically underserved communities that are disproportionately affected by air pollution, while also relieving freight bottlenecks. So members of our Interagency Equity Advisory Committee helped evaluate each project's ability to demonstrate meaningful and robust community engagement and respond to the needs of vulnerable communities. And this input influenced our project selection. So Our EAC members noted that for many projects, engagement spanned across years or decades, and community feedback often led to additional project elements. And some of those elements included Class 1 multi-use pedestrian and bicycle paths that are physically separated from heavy-duty trucks and other traffic, dedicated bicycle and pedestrian overcrossings, and sidewalk gap closures. In addition, the projects also leverage over $2 billion in state, federal, and local funds and are projected to create about 39,000 jobs. So we're already starting to think about Cycle 5, the 2026 program. So guidelines development is tentatively planned to begin in late 2025. So we'll probably have our kickoff workshop in November or December of this year. In the meantime, applicants, both successful and unsuccessful, can request a debrief to get feedback on their application, and if they were unsuccessful, to help improve that application for the future, and if they were successful, to kind of pinpoint areas maybe where their application was weak, so when they submit projects in the future, they can kind of address those issues. And then while we're doing guidelines development, we'll also be offering office hours, which is the time where we provide technical assistance to applicants. So we really encourage all of our applicants or people or agencies who are thinking about applying to take advantage of these technical assistance opportunities. Guidelines adoption is tentatively planned for the summer of 2026. And then right after that, the call for projects will be released, and then applications would likely be due in late 2026. And it's only been a few days since Cycle 4 was adopted, so that's really all the information I have to share with you about Cycle 5 right now, but in the coming months and at the next CFAC meeting, I'll be able to share more about kind of key dates and priorities for Cycle 5. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions, and my contact information is on this slide deck, which will be shared, and as well as Matthew Yosgott, who's our Deputy Director. And happy to answer any questions.
Looks like there's a question in the chat. Can you clarify how much total money is awarded each year? Your slide states that TSIP receives $400 million each year, and then 3.1 billion. Yeah.
Yes. So the program receives about $400 million each year, but that's not, it's based on, the state funds are based on projected diesel excise tax revenues. So the amount actually varies each year. So it ends up being about 400 million, but it could be more and it could be less. And the program, and I should have said this, and I'm so sorry, the program is over a 2-year period. So there's 2 years of programming, which is why we programmed about in total $1 billion, and I said $400 million each year, but that's for 2 years. So that's why it's a little bit more than, well, that's why it sounds like it's more than what I originally said for each year. Hopefully that makes sense, but I'm happy to clarify further.
There is another question. How does the existing 2023 CFMP guide funding decisions for TSIP, if at all? Is it used for scoring or other?
So our evaluation criteria is based on the TSIP guidelines, which is also based on statute. So there's statutory requirements for what we evaluate on. And then we bring that to workshops with all of our partners, including people who are on this meeting, to kind of figure out what exactly the evaluation criteria will be and kind of how, like, what different factors we'll be working on. And I see Matthew is raising his hand. That's our Deputy Director.
Yeah, thanks, Beverly. And I know that our partners in Caltrain's planning can corroborate or correct me if I'm wrong, but I can say the 2023 CFMP was developed in partnership with the commission. So the 2023 CFMP includes a lot of similar objectives. It has a call out for the Clean Freight Corridor Efficiency Assessment. So similarly to how the commission's program guidelines are developed, we do coordinate with Caltrain's Division of Transportation Planning when they update each iteration of the CFMP. So while we don't directly take the CFMP into project selection consideration at the commission, I would not want that to suggest that there is a lot in common between the CFMP and the TSEP guidelines.
Thanks, Matthew.
Are there any other questions or comments in the chat? I think that's it. Thanks, Beverly.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, much appreciated, Beverly. We wrapped up this item just a tad early, but that's okay. So what I would like to do is just take our scheduled 10-minute break. And so we'll just round it out at being back here at 2:50. We'll just do that. So it'll be a 12-minute break. So we'll reconvene at 2:50. So thank you all.
Hello.
I'm just responding to that email from those bozos.
Which bozos?
Uh, Harbor Industrial.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet.
Hey, Carrie, you're unmuted. All right. It is 2:50. Welcome back. Okay, so we are going to proceed to our next agenda item, which is our agency roundtable updates. So this segment allows partner agencies to share the latest freight-related news from their respective offices. So we're going to hear from CalSTA, CTC, GoBiz, and Caltrans today. So with that, we'll begin with the California State Transportation Agency, Dr. N. Ghassan Alfi, who is the freight policy manager, who's going to be representing Dr. Christine Casey, who's our deputy secretary over freight policy.
Okay, thank you, Marlon. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm filling in for Christine today. As you mentioned, we have 3 items here that we want to share with the team here, with the group here. So the first item is for the past 2 months, CARSTA has been a very proactive working with the supply chain stakeholders. So on June 6th, we convened a follow-up supply chain stakeholder roundtable, building off our first meetings that we had with the stakeholder back in at the port of Long Beach. So within that roundtable, one of the main discussions items were the improvement, visibility improvement into the real world supply chain disruptions due to the tariffs that we are seeing and talking about, and strengthening public and private collaborations through data sharing, and also advancing actionable step for sustained engagement with all the ports and supply chain actors. So we discussed within CASTA here, we are maintaining a statewide supply chain dashboard, and that dashboard has gained momentum because it's being used now uh, from the governor's office to report on some of the tracking ports of performance. And in July 18, we have also looking ahead, we have scheduled another meeting with all the supply chain stakeholders to align on some of the key metrics that we discussed back in June 6th, and also establishing a reporting process for sharing data, and also how we can support up what's being done at the governor office of research, and also put in place an ongoing coordinations, including frequency of meetings. So we have been working on that diligently with all the supply chain stakeholders, like private sectors, like PMSA, as well as all the ports and agencies that are supporting our work here. The second point is our port and freight infrastructure program, the PFIP, which is, we have a great support from Caltrans headquarters and Division of Local Assistance to review and approve time extensions requests from all the PFIP awardees. And some of them have expressed lately difficulties navigating Caltrans processes. So Caltrans has been proactive, preparing responses for streamline those processes that we'll be discussing in the coming weeks with all the awardees. One of the other key elements also is the inland port study. Caltrans is also assisting CalStar on that. Caltrans can speak more to that, but we have had initial meetings with some of the stakeholders also and see with Caltrans how we're gonna work on that. I believe Caltrans has put in place a scope of work that is being reviewed by CASTA. So in the coming days, we will also we will continue the discussions and the work around that. The last thing that we have here, continue working with Caltrans. We have had a good working group with Caltrans transportation economics team to kind of access a broader economic impact of tariff on California's economy. And this is one of the things that we're doing in supporting SB 263. We don't know where it's going to land, but we also been proactive working on the projected losses and state tax revenue due to the tariff implication on employment across the freight-related sectors, and also the effect on ports and terminal revenue. And for that also, we having a great conversations and discussions with the ports and the rest of the stakeholders within the industry. So this is what we have broadly as coordinations and freight related issues that we are also tackling on a daily basis here. This is the end of my report. Back to you, Marlon. Thank you. Any questions already?
Yeah, thank you very much. Any questions? Well, great update. Much appreciated. So next we are going to hear from the California Transportation Commission. So again, we have Beverly Newman Burkhart, who is our Trade Corridor Enhancement Program Manager.
Thanks, Marlon. Okay, so my main update was the presentation I gave a few minutes ago. So we don't really have any other updates. One thing I just want to reiterate from my updates, I think there may be a few applicants on this call. Just remember that you can request a debrief for both unsuccessful and successful applications, and we'll be doing those over the next couple of months. So please reach out if you are interested. And that's it. Thank you.
All right, thanks again, Beverly. Appreciate it. So next we have GoBiz. Traylon Bradley, who is the Deputy Director for Innovation and Emerging Technologies.
Great, thank you. And thank you to the CFAC team and to all those who are joining today. So our update is also fairly brief for this meeting. Our office continues to do, I would say, a couple of things relative to the goods movement sector. One of them is our continued operation and management of the Port Data Interoperability Program, of which there are 10 awards across 5 containerized ports to build data interoperability development, and also including projects ranging from unified trucking appointment systems to development of data standards and building of cloud infrastructure. So we're probably a little bit over a third of the way through progress in those grants. And the work continues to be very robust, and thank you to specifically those 5 ports, which are Port of San Diego, Port of Los Angeles, Port of Long Beach, Port of Oakland, and Port of Hueneme, who have all been great partners with the state in this effort, and really driving home some of the needs, and also building on some of the points that Calston made, which is building the data floor necessary to give a window into impacts for things like tariffs, for example, which leads to our next piece, which is on the tariffs front. Our office continues to support individual operators in freight and affected businesses, both in logistics and distribution, but then also those who are purchasers of freight or downstream or use export-import in spaces such as agriculture and manufacturing, providing technical tailored incentive navigation and permit assistance. So helping those firms who are impacted by tariffs and have seen hits to their bottom line navigating other existing and state incentive programs to help them somewhat weather this period of uncertainty. So that basically covers, I would say, a bulk of the work that we have ongoing and currently relative to freight. We also just returned from in partnership with CalSTA, the Air Resources Board, and several of the member ports from a maritime decarbonization tour in Europe just a few weeks ago, which was very rewarding. And then I'd say the last thing that we're continuing to do as needed in partnership with other agencies is continue to track and monitor activity relative to federal funding, grants, and awards received by both ports, but then other projects that we have, including some of the inland projects in short line from the federal government in this past year. For those on the call, I'm sure that many are aware that last year was by far and more one of the best single year on record for federal funding awarded to California for freight and goods movement, and especially to our ports. And so, continuing to track and be sure that we're privy to any change orders or change in tempo of reimbursements. So thank you for those port partners and others who have been providing that information, not only to us, but also to the governor's office in real time as you are dealing with your federal funding and awards. And then the final item I have on my list is our Jobs First initiative. California Jobs First is the statewide economic development strategy that is led in partnership with our office and the Labor and Workforce Development Agency. So we do have a couple of regions that have selected freight and goods movement as priority industry for their region and is on our placemat within the defend category of industry sectors. So defend, meaning that it is a that has traditionally been strengthened in California, but of course has challenges and there's risk to losing market share of potential economic competitiveness with California. So we're continuing to having those dialogues with regions and also monitor and also engaging with submitted projects that they're providing through our Jobs First initiative that we are providing funds to. We also continue to engage with the regional economic development corporations, including those that have listed freight and goods movement as an industry for thinking about planning activities that we can be in support of the sector in the upcoming year. With that concludes my update. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Traylon. I really appreciate it. Okay, next we're going to hear from Yatman Kwan, who's our Deputy Division Chief for Caltrans DOT, who's going to give the Caltrans freight update.
All right, thank you, Marlon. Some personal updates. As you mentioned earlier, Marlon, Ben Diabla is our new Division Chief for the Division of Transportation Planning. As of May 1st, Riley Keller became the permanent office chief for the Technical Freight and Project Integration Office. In his role, he will oversee the department's technical expertise for developing and implementing priority freight projects and planning activities. I want to thank Lala Tija for her tremendous contribution to the program as the acting office chief for the last 8 months. As you heard earlier in our meeting, Kieran Palmer, she is our acting program manager for the California Freight Mobility Plan since March. In other DOTP updates, the Sustainable Transportation Planning Grant fiscal year 25-26 awards was just announced an hour ago. So you should be the successful awardees will be getting conditional award letters and the applicants who did not get the awards will also be provided notices. District staff will coordinate next steps for both awardees and non-awardees. And for the next fiscal year 26-27 grant application guide and call for applications anticipated to be released in September. Applications are anticipated to due in December. The funding available for this program will be about $18 million. Of those, $3 million will be for strategic partnership. 1.5 is for strategic partnership and for transit. After release of the grant application guide and call for applications, the district and headquarters will hold application workshops to provide further details. For the Port and Freight Infrastructure Program, upcoming notice for upcoming NOFO, NORAD had extended the application deadline to September 10th. It is the United States Marine Highway Program. Application deadline is July 15th, 2025. And on the Office of Federal Liaisons, IJ Reauthorization Sub-Working Group Planning, Economic Prosperity Goods Movement, the working group has been meeting since January this year to discuss possible federal advocacy in advance of future congressional action, reauthorizing surface transportation programs. Caltrans is seeking input and engagement from our stakeholders to ensure our collective voice is heard and reflected in the next reauthorization bill. For more information, the general workshop group structure and schedule, we will send a link out to this. Caltrans is currently scheduled a sub-working group meeting on economic prosperity and goods movement, which is expected to occur on July 23rd from 10:30 a.m. to noon. This meeting will include presentation, discussion on the Port and Infrastructure Development Program, supply chain and goods movement, and federal requirements for California Freight Plan. An invitation to participate in future working groups meetings will be made available through Caltrans engagement channel, including as part of our biweekly federal affairs update. Those interested in signing up receive newsletter and we will send also that link out as well. So those are the updates from DOTP.
All right, thank you, Yatman. Appreciate it. Any questions for Yatman? Okay, with that said, thank you again. So we're going to proceed to the next agenda item. So this is going to be the CFAC member roundtable, and this is a chance for information sharing. If any CFAC members wish to contribute, please use the raise hand icon, and Tracy will call on you in order. I can't see any raised hands, Tracy, just let me know.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any raised hands too, but there are a couple of questions from the previous agenda item. We can either go back to that or we still have maybe give CFAC members a chance if they want to think of something to provide an update.
Is that something we can do? Okay, so we can do that.
Okay. All right, so we do have a question. Does SB 263 require CFAC consultation to discuss the scope of the tariff study?
I can take that a little bit to provide a few what we know here. No, no. Specifically, it's among CalStar, the DOF, Division of Department of Finance, and GOBIS to work on that. So I don't think the CFAC and also the some of the key elements required, the most important things required for the 263 are already listed in there. So there's no other consultations needed at this point for that.
Thanks, Safi. And while you're on the line here, there's another question for you. You mentioned that the inland port study, is this a new one or a follow-up on the previous ones in the Central Valley?
No, the actually the inland port study was part of the initial PFIP. I think it's $1 million allocated to that within the port and freight infrastructure program. So the scope of work has been designed by Caltrans already. So we're working on that at this point. So it's not something new. And obviously, I think UC Evans has also a study out there. I don't know the stage if they have published it or still under review, but it's something that also we reviewed recently.
Great, thanks so much. Okay, Marlon, back to you. I think we're back on the item for CFAC members.
All right. Did we have anyone that raised their hand?
I haven't seen any raised hands.
Okay. All right. So if there's something that comes up after the meeting, please let us know, and we can include it in the minutes to be posted. All right. So we are now on our agenda item number 7, which is public comment. This is a chance for attendees to submit a comment or speak on any topic. So again, please raise your hand, raise your hand feature, and Tracy will call upon you to speak. All right, looks like no raised hands, Tracy.
Nope, I'm not seeing any either.
Okay. Quiet group today. All right. This is our last agenda item. So this is the meeting recap and adjournment. So as part of this item, I want to extend my gratitude to all of our speakers, CFAC members, and agency partners for your dedicated efforts in being a part of this advisory body as we work towards a more sustainable future for freight. Thank you all for your participation. Do not hesitate to reach out to our team if you have any thoughts or questions. And I do want to take just a brief opportunity to actually thank our Caltrans freight team for pulling everything together in regards to the logistics for this meeting, helping to prepare myself and everything that goes into it. You can imagine there's a lot of work that goes into this behind the scenes to make this happen. So I want to extend my gratitude to them. And before we wrap up, I'm going to turn it over to Yatman, who is going to go over any noted agenda items, or excuse me, action items.
Yes. So thank you, Marlon. So we have 2 action items. One is Caltrans will share the CFMP vision, goals, and objectives for CFAC members to review and provide comments. And then the second is the IJ reauthorization webpage, which the link has been posted by Kaylin on our chat. So if I am missing action items, please feel free to provide those in the chat. But those ones I've got.
Okay, great. Thank you, Yatman. So with that said, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and we look forward to seeing you all at our next CFAC meeting. So enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you all.